Come on. Keep writing.
I will. I'm just not feeling very motivated.
This is what you get, leaving your least favorite character for last. I know that you hate Rose, but...
Actually, I think hate is too strong of a word for it. Rose makes me feel... nothing. Like a big, apathetic nothingness in my chest. Maybe if she was a villain, I could conjure a strong negative emotion of some kind towards her. But I actually like Homestuck's villains more than Rose.
What?
It's hard to explain. It's all in her characterization, I think. Rose is pretentious, mocking, cynical, and reeks of harsh sarcasm. She acts reckless and treats next to no one with any kind of respect or kindness. She's so serious that she doesn't even have a sense of the prankster's gambit. She has her insane hang-up on wizards. Did I mention the mommy issues?
You're stalling.
Come on. Her own mother dies and she just so happens to fall in love with the motherly troll.
At least she tried to break up Gamrizzy pre-retcon.
True enough. I'll concede 1 point in her favor. At least she saw that relationship was problematic. Too bad she couldn't successfully stop it.
Well, think of it this way. Remember years ago? You were hesitant about writing Kanaya's Fridgestuck, but ended up gaining new insight and respect for her as a character. Maybe you'll feel the same with Rose?
I guess we'll find out. Could you roll the intro on the way out?
It'd be a pleasure.
Rose Lalonde's name was suggested by Gankra, formerly Gankro, the programmer who created most of Homestuck's interactive flash games, with the most notable being Soundpage You There, Boy, where players could activate an Easter egg to engage in trickster mode for the first time. Funnily enough, lavender roses in the language of flowers represents enchantment, perfect for our magic aficionado. As mentioned in Roxy's Fridgestuck, the surname Lalonde is Old Norman French for grove or wood. Rose literally lives in Adirondack State Park, specifically on top of Rainbow Falls. This makes her home's relocation to the top of a rainbow waterfall in the land of light and rain all the more ironic. Rose's chum handle is Tentacle Therapist, due to her interests in the zoologically dubious and psychoanalysis. Homestuck's teenagers are already precocious characters, but the fact that Rose speaks and writes with extensive and wordy phrases in purple could be a reference to purple prose. Purple prose is when a writer's wording is overly poetic, flowery, or severely formal to the point that readers are focusing more on the author and their word choices and not the writing itself. Rose and Alpha Rose's series, The Complacency of the Learned, is the textbook definition of the phrase. Rose's Strife Specibus is Needlekind, for stabbing purposes, and later for magic, as combining them with the wizard statue seems to infuse the needles with a power similar to Wandkind. They're basically identical abstrata. Needlekind is just stricter in regards to names and titles, and requires its weapons to also be lethally pokey. As stated both inside and outside the comic, Rose is canonically a blonde. Homestuck's creator Andrew Hussey mentioned on Forum Spring that not only is Rose not an albino, her eye color might not literally be purple. One of Rose's fascinations is the horror terrors, giant eldritch creatures with dark powers but no discernible agenda. Powerful enough to create the dream bubbles, but when Lord English appears on the scene and starts massacring them, they whisper for help from the Spurb players. Due to certain quotes from the comic, fans have speculated that the horror terrors are god-tier players from any and all null sessions that didn't get scratched, evolving into giant tentacle monsters after living for millions of years due to the god-tier's conditional immortality. Unless they were already monsters to begin with. Hussey did have a long-running joke that the Trolls universe was created by 48 squiddles, but it wouldn't be outside the realm of plausibility. If you consider that the Trolls have a 48-sign zodiac, it would mirror the human universe having a 12-sign zodiac after being created by 12 beings. Speaking of squiddles, Hussey rather half-heartedly said that squiddles are candy-coated representations of the outer gods, created by humans who were subconsciously aware of their existence, deciding to then present the old gods in a more child-friendly facade. Man, symbolic storytelling using characters from the subconscious? What a crazy idea! Am I right? Yep. Uh-huh. Wait, did everyone get new full-body sprite designs except for me? I'm in the effing React thumbnails! Jen doesn't even cover Warrior Cat stuff. You're the one getting the fanfic, Mercury. What's with the door behind you? It looks important. It's nothing. Certainly not a primordial metaphysical link holding back an ancient evil we managed to seal away that is attempting to break into your subconscious or anything. Psyche! Oh, okay. You're lucky Jen's making a point about Rose's own incredible lack of self-awareness by writing herself incredibly stupid right now. Hussey also confirmed that the plot of Complacency of the Learned, involving 12 evil kids being responsible for every horrible event in their universe's history, was Rose echoing her own universe's creation story. Hussey did refer to the troll race as nasty and evil after all, mentioning that it was probably for the best that there was only 12 copies of Scrub in existence. Then again, he also said that Homestuck storylines would suck if depicted in novel form, and that didn't stop the depressing epilogues from getting made, did it? Hussey stated that a lot of the wizard references in Homestuck came from his own satirical wizard fic that he never got around to finishing. The characters of Zazerpan and his Complacency of the Learned, as well as any jokes about magic not being real, originally stemmed from Hussey's Wizardly Herbert. Hussey's concept art of two Wizardly Herbert characters, namely Herbert and a girl named Beatrix, can be seen in several versions of Rose's room, and Roxy is shown later on to have several pages of her own version of Wizardly Herbert. According to Hussey's commentary on the merch available on topatico.com, Rose Lalonde defaced her own t-shirt. As shown in the images for a poster, her grim-looking squid symbol was originally a cutesy squiddle before she changed it, describing it on the page as the Lovecraftian defaced version. H.P. Lovecraft was a science fiction and horror author, well known for his cosmically horrifying creatures, like Cthulhu, as well as mysterious items like the Necronomicon grimoire. Lovecraft's writing often had human characters experience forbidden knowledge that would destroy the person psychologically, if not physically, or have them face some kind of uncontrollable and inescapable fate due to the actions of a powerfully evil or indifferent, non-human being. Of course, Lovecraft's horrors stem directly from his real-life fears and prejudices towards everything, from country folk to black people to Einstein's theory of relativity. But he's not the subject of this video. Though, tell me if this sounds familiar. As a child living in New England, Lovecraft owned a black cat with an unfortunate name that later ran away, and it's rumored that he was so distraught by his loss that he never got another cat again. Continuing with famous 20th century writers, in the Walk-Around Flash sound page Seer Descend, Rose can interact with a quartet of banners with the Beta Kids aspects on them. The banners are a piece titled They Wait, with each banner calling back to the prose and poem snippets attributed to each of the Beta Kids earlier in the webcomic. While Johns quotes La Rochefoucauld, Dave's, Snoop Dogg, and the last line of Jade's references Shakespeare's Hamlet, Rose's quote comes from The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, a poem so popular yet so crazy, other writers of the time, including H.P. Lovecraft, wrote satire of it. This poem, guys. What the hell? 434 lines. It's separated into 5 parts, with each having to do with themes of disillusionment and depression, pulls references from multiple cultures and writers, and changes time and location, even its speaker, without warning. And I thought keeping up with Homestuck was a chore. Not to mention, The Wasteland has a section labeled A Game of Chess, refers to a being with pearls for eyes, and has Tiresias, the blind seer, as a reoccurring narrator. My favorite part was something that happened during the creation of the poem itself, which resulted in one of the biggest, stupidly ridiculous illusions Homestuck ever pulled. T.S. Eliot had a friend and fellow poet Ezra Pound, who read and edited drafts of The Wasteland, with Eliot later dedicating the poem to him. In response, Pound wrote a letter to Eliot, and with it sent a poem of his own called Sage Homme, a play on the French terms sage femme, or midwife, seeing himself as the male midwife to Eliot's literary work. This is where it gets good.
These are the poems of Eliot. By the Uranian muse begot. A man their mother was. A muse their sire. How did the printed infancies result? From nuptials thus doubly difficult? If you must needs inquire, no diligent reader, that on each occasion Ezra performed the Caesarean operation.
What an adorkable nerd.
Who? Ezra Pound or Hussey?
Yes. Of course, I mainly know T.S. Eliot from his collection of poems, Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats, which later inspired the cult classic musical, Cats. What is it with Rose and cats? This may have to do with Rose's light aspect. It's well known that Spurb chooses class specs that would challenge the player, almost like picking the exact opposite personality of the player. Since the light aspect is connected with fortune and a bright color scheme, a deadpan snarker, perpetual cynic, and the owner of one unlucky black cat, like Rose Lalonde, fits the bill nicely. Even her planet is blindingly bright. The beta girls in general are a mix of contradictions. After all, the moody girl with a black cat and an appreciation for dark magic ends up as a vibrant colored seer, while Jade, the sunshiny happy girl who has literal visions of the future, becomes a black-robed witch. Rose Lalonde is the Seer of Light, continuing the punny god-tier titles of most of the beta kids. Rose's title references the phrase, "see the light," where someone understands or realizes something after prolonged thought or doubt. Rose does tend to stay in dark denial, often over who she can or cannot trust. Even her entry into the game seems to reflect her need to trust. Before breaking the Crooksite bottle on the house as if christening a ship, Rose has to take a literal leap of faith to complete the process and trust that a friend would catch her. Synonymous with the word understander, the seer is a passive class, using their abilities to assist others rather than only strengthening themselves. Seers can be male or female, with most, regardless of god-tier status, developing strong powers, able to see past and future events. Even post-scratch versions are shown to actively seek and forge strong bonds with other former players. This most likely indicates that seers are aware of many, if not all, potential paths that they and their friends can take, even ones from doomed or dead timelines, and are able to take the knowledge and experiences from those timelines to help their team, possibly making them one of the most OP Spurb classes, alongside maids and thieves. Speaking of which, I've already talked about the light aspect a bit when covering Vriska Serket, but I found something out that I just had to mention. On Vriska's planet Lomat, the land of maps and treasure, the sky looks like an antique treasure map, complete with glowing purple symbols. These symbols point in all cardinal directions, or principal winds, serving as navigation for sailors and orienteers for centuries. They are called wind roses, or compass roses. The fact that they were used for guiding people, along with their many triangular points, might have served as inspiration for the light symbol's design. Speaking of which, given her aspect, lunar sway, and her birthday of December 4th, Rose's troll sign would be Sagipia, the empirical, the title sharing the Durst counterpart to Vriska's sign. Saying something is empirical means that something can be proved true and logical through first-hand experience. Most science-based fields work with empirical data, collected through the scientific method, where you repeat a controlled experiment over and over again to prove something didn't just happen by chance, or through some kind of intervention. And the last Fridgestuck fact for Rose Lalonde is, as mentioned in a previous Fridgestuck, Rose's denizen is Cetus, based on the sea monster of the same name in Greek myth. While it fits Rose's associated element of water, Cetus is also a constellation that houses a galaxy in its center. In December, Rose's birthday month, Cetus obscures the surrounding constellations for an entire day, an act which is called entering the belly of the whale. The term the belly of the whale is also present in Joseph Campbell's version of the hero's journey, representing when the hero fully entered the unknown and undergoes a change after experiencing their first minor setback, where the hero, instead of conquering or conciliating the power of the threshold, is swallowed into the unknown and would appear to have died. This could be representing how Kanaya and the other trolls saw the session after Rose went grimdark. Rose, and anyone that got close to her during her grimdark phase, could not be seen or contacted. They were swallowed up by pitch black. Someone could have been dead for all they knew. Rose's grimdark transformation is mentioned by word of God to be complementary to Kanaya's rainbow drinker transformation. However, this was before trickster mode was officially introduced to the narrative. With grimdark being dark, frightening, and mildly out of control, trickster mode is the exact opposite, being colorful, cheerful, and absolutely bananas. I wonder if the horror terrors realized that giving Rose these dark powers would cause her to lose her senses and fall to the grimdark side. It could have been an accident. Though the subtle Punisher reference is working for me. After all, Rose is avenging her dead family. Wait a minute. That's it! Phil, send me back. Rose is a grimdark character.
I'm afraid you lost me, Miss Jen.
Let me explain. Okay, so, grimdark as a writing style emerged during the 90s, inspired by the Dark Era comics of the 1980s and by Warhammer 40k, where the phrase was first coined. A game where there were no good guys and ultimately no happy endings. Similarly, heroes are not a thing in grimdark, because heroes instill optimistic virtue or the belief that the broken world can be saved, things that are antithetical to the style. Grimdark protagonists, therefore, are self-centered, self-destructive, and unpleasant people. Sympathetic and relatable, yes, but not good, and certainly not able to accomplish anything but their own selfish goals, by the very laws of the world. On top of that, their morality will be very gray, if anything, where they might not even care if the consequences of their actions hurt others in the process. Not all grimdark tales are rooted in your stereotypical emo teenager saying, "The world is cold and dark, and no one understands my struggle, Mom." Think about characters such as Lee from The Walking Dead, or works with important themes like 1984. Both fall under the label of grimdark. However, if you didn't find the characters compelling or the themes worth exploring, you'd probably end up having a terrible time. And I think that's where Rose Lalonde falls for me. Rose was the pessimist in what I felt was a room full of optimists, the part of the world that could be saved, where John, Jade, and even Dave could take advice, work together, and have hope. Rose became isolated, ignored warnings, intimidated her consorts, and experimented in a cold, logical fashion, all for the sake of her own curiosity.
Question. Vriska acts similarly to Rose, with her death count somewhere in the hundreds. Yet you still like her more?
That's the thing. When Vriska arrived on the scene, I expected her to be some kind of awful person, just based on the other trolls' interactions with her, or about her behind her back, and the fact that she was raised on a planet that embraced a cruel Darwinian upbringing. This desensitization, in turn, made me less disturbed by her actions later on. Rose, on the other hand, I still don't get. Introduced early in, she has a caring mom, was well taken care of, and yet she sometimes comes off as a jerk with a dark view of the world. I like optimism and happy endings. Fatalism and disillusionment make me depressed. Kind of why I wasn't a big fan of the epilogues, and why I'm trying to focus on any little joy I can find in the sequel. So, if you're a fan of Rose, good for you. But while I think she's interesting from a Fridge standpoint, I still think she needs some serious character development before I can even think of putting her in a positive light. Thank you guys so much for watching this Fridgestuck episode for Rose Lalonde. I hope you enjoyed. After many years, Fridgestuck may be slowing to a close, but next year I hope to have even more Homestuck-related videos for you guys to enjoy. I couldn't have done YouTube at all without your support and kind words. Be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe, and share with a friend, and check out my Patreon, and I will see you all next time. Bye!
Candy canes, lick 'em in a spear and kill your enemy. Stab, 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 stab.
Hey there. Consider becoming a patron, just like the phenomenal Bleed Red, Alexander Madeline, Uranium Coffee, and Ryan Nelson.